Good day, good evening, good night, wherever and whenever you're listening to this. Welcome to the Bitaxe Townhall. I'm One Clue, your host, and today we're writing the Townhall number 53. I'm really happy to be here. I hope you guys are also really happy to be here. And while the Bitcoin price is doing weird things, we're just chilling and building in the open scene. So, with that, before we do dive into any topics, I want to make sure to everybody who's in the audience, and it's lovely to see a lot of you guys joining in here again, that if you do have any questions, these BitX town halls are live and recorded. So if you do have any questions, feel free to ask them. We do have the town hall chat, as well as you do have the option to raise your hand, and I'll make sure to bring you up on stage if you prefer that, because it's recorded and will be later on uploaded. So whatever you do like, make sure you do it. Or if you don't have any questions, well, you don't need to ask any. But it's really important to say here that these town halls are here for you so that you can jump in and ask the developers or people that are curious or just in here with you on the same topic to get some answers to that. And Max, I do see you raise your hand. I'll bring you in just a second. Give me, please, a moment. So let's give you a quick overview of the topics today. I basically only have like two topics that I want to talk about with you today. News-wise, obviously a couple of you guys are requesting, well, when do we gonna see the version 2.13? The answer to that is very soon. There are 2 to 3 more things that need to be built and implemented. One of these things is a highly recommended or suggested feature, or at least that's what I do hope. But a couple of people requested that, and I'm working on that, about the fact that when your miner does disconnect from any sort of servers, you want to make sure that it's not just burning power useless. So either it needs to go to a stop or something else. And in the last release, I implemented the way that if your device goes into the overheat mode, it actually shuts down the AC chip, so it does not draw any power, and there is no power going to the AC chip. This feature will be leveraged to accomplish this thing of when you're not connected to any pool, it doesn't draw any power. But more on that later on. The other topic that I want to talk today about with you is a little bit about community embracement and community engagement, basically. I've seen lots of cool people joining in here and just showing off their 3D prints they created or their new things they did. So yeah, I just want to dive into that. But before we do that, let me bring Max on the stage and let's see what he wants to ask. It seems like he's gone. All right. Good. So the topic about things that are coming up for the next release. Obviously, the version 2.13 does have plenty of things in it that needs to be implemented, and it's really good to see that with all of these versions, we do have more and more things coming in. People are requesting a lot of features or changes they want to see, while the maintainers of the project, we need to make sure that it does stick to its roots. I like to prefer it that way, and that we don't lose what we're trying to achieve here with this open source Bitcoin miner. I mean, I do know plenty of people are out there and using that to mine some shitcoins, and then they do discover some bugs which are only true on these kind of shit chains. Well, it's kind of an internal discussion if we should fix these things, if this is just an issue on side chains or not. And the most common sense on that is sometimes we do fix them, sometimes we don't, because in the end, we're working here on Bitcoin mining hardware. We don't really care about any of these shitcoins. So I'm sorry if anybody of you now gets upset, but that's the root of the BitX project. But let's quickly dive a little bit into what will happen with the version 2.13, because there are lots of things coming in there. I mean, obviously, you do have seen the version 801, the Bitaxe GT has been released, which happened in the version 2.12.2. There are also a couple other things now implemented with the version 2.13. Primarily, most of these things that we are these days fixing are just bugs or improvements in general. there are also new features coming into it, like having the option to see the script sig, so to be able to see what is actually written in the Bitcoin block template you're working on with your mining device, as well as some other improvements when it comes, for example, to the BAP, or the Bitaxe accessory port, which is a port that has not really been used recently or lately, but will be used in the future way more often due to several things. Like there are a couple of accessories coming out very shortly that will leverage this port, as well as other things in the front end that are also improving, such as not only the script sig, but there's also a potential improvement for showing some sort of high scores when it comes to your device internally, what it did achieve. And I'm not only talking about the fact of your best difficulty, there are also sometimes other cool things that you want to see. And if I do skim over all of the changes that we do have currently in 2.13, there's a ton. Most of them are usually in the backend, and improvements in general, like making sure that you can connect to your correct Wi-Fi, etc., that some things are breaking when it comes to the fallback pool usage, etc., etc. So there are really many fixes that we're doing, and we are also slowly upgrading packages and everything else that we are utilizing, for example, with the front end. It's written in TypeScript, and it does use a framework called Angular. So with that, we also want to make sure that we do stay on top of the bleeding edge, what is currently in there. But this does take a little bit of time. The permanent reason for that is, time and the people who are working on it. I mean, most of the backend things are currently being handled by Mutatrim and me, and we try to do our best in making sure that we can handle as many issues as possible, but the limitations of us is front end. Like, we're not really into that. And as I said in the last town hall, unluckily Duck left us, and we don't know if he will come back or not. He just left and said he doesn't have any longer any time. So we lost a really awesome mind when it comes to the front end development. And so now it's a little bit on the hand of Mutatrim and me to fix these things, which probably will take longer because we need to read into things, and it just slows things down. But in general, the upgrades that you will see with version 2.13 are, as usual, mostly improvements into stability of these devices, as well as just general improvements to the web interface and the usability of it. There are a couple of things that are coming into it, maybe in 2.13, maybe into 2.14, we don't know yet, which will hopefully also improve the onboarding process. I mean, you guys know it. The current way that we do have of onboarding devices is quite nice. I mean, not to mention like having the captive portal, like this magic web page that does open if you do connect to the Wi-Fi of the Bitaxe. It's a great thing. But we are looking into other ways on how we could improve that, and how we could make sure that this does, just feel as smooth as possible to the user in the end. Because if you get such a device, and that's the whole purpose that we're trying to achieve here, we want to make sure that these devices feel smooth, that people love to use them, that they love to look at them, they want to check them, etc. Because that's some interaction, that's engagement with the device that you purchase, because it's your own hardware, it belongs to you. And if we can make sure that it does feel like a native thing, or your third arm, or whatever, like you love this thing from the very beginning to the point on where you're currently at, that needs to happen. Like, if some things from unpackaging your device and setting it up for the first time don't feel right, well, then we need to look into them. And that's what's happening behind the curtains as well. Like, we're trying to figure out what kind of ways can we do to improve these feelings, like all over it. One of the biggest concerns that we currently do have, or that I just rose a while ago, and which I'm planning on trying to find a solution on how to improve that, is the current UI UX experience that people do have. Because it is working great, We have the web interfaces. We have the option to communicate over API with these devices. Yeah, that's all great. But one thing that's happening, especially with the people who are looking at their bidex from the web interface, they might get thrown off their pants or whatever. Like that's it could be too much information. So it's kind of a weird situation that we're currently in with all of the features, improvements, and information that we do present to the user. And sometimes it's really good to go back to the roots and think about, well, what was it like for me for the very first time when I attached my very first Bitcoin miner? Like, what was the experience? And then think about it a second time, like, what do I want to see? What kind of guidance do I need? Or do I even need any guidance? Like, if I think about applications on your phone and then you start the app for the first time and it just gives you this quick start guide and you need to apply to all of these things, that's super annoying. You don't want to have that probably. And it's not a market journal thing that should be applied these days. But when it comes to the web interface for the BitX, it might be the case that we are just displaying too many information for general purpose users. And with that being said, there is a little bit of investigation going on when it comes to how can we decrease the flow and the overflow of information and make sure that the device does just feel native and easy to use. So if any of you guys do have some recommendations, or if you have some points of like, well, this should go or this should be hidden, and maybe we need a magic button at this position to enable certain features or disable them, that is really recommended, and I'd love to see that. I do see Scott wants to come up on stage. I'll think about it for a second. Well, let's invite him. Hey Scott, how are you doing?
Hey, Clue, how's it going? Thanks for inviting me up on stage.
Yeah, it's my pleasure. And I mean, today I was in the mood and I was thinking, yeah, I could invite that man.
Thank you. It's always good to be here. What's going on? What are y'all talking about?
We are currently, or I am currently, holding my monologue about things that are changing in the future. We quickly talked about a couple of things that are coming into 2.13 and why 2.13 is yet not done and will probably take a couple more days to be in a state where we can release it and what is missing. And then I was just a little bit elaborating on what's happening when it comes to the UI UX experience and why, especially from my end, I think we need to change on a couple of things there and go back to our roots of making sure the device does work in a certain way and is easily accessible to everybody, especially to those people who never used the Bitcoin miner before.
I think that's a great idea.
It's it's a weird task to have, like especially I'm always when I'm reviewing pull requests or when I'm taking a look into the issues that people are opening, sometimes I'm in this state of like, well, let's break it down. Let's go back to the roots. What was I thinking when I set up my very first miner over a decade ago? I was like, yeah, okay, now I do understand why these people don't understand the BitX or don't understand the UI UX experience they are currently having. So it's a list that I'm fulfilling. I do have like a sheet, a text document on my PC that I fill up with certain questions and certain comments of myself that I will probably draft into a issue very shortly to have some sort of a guidance or like a first version of what I think might need to be changed. And I do have a couple of branches that I've been worked on to put certain features behind, like magic buttons, having toggles or anything else to enable like enhanced features. But I think it's not as easy as that. We need to rethink how XOS is designed, not in terms of theme, but in terms of UI UX.
I think I'm down with that. I'm down with that. I mean, we got a lot of excellent features added. Duck Hacks did a lot of excellent work. But I agree that that experience when you first set up your Bitaxe, when you're kind of first learning about Bitcoin mining, how does that work for you? Like, how are you convinced that you did it right, that it's going? Those kind of basic things. We have a lot of cool features um, for monitoring the performance of your Bitaxe, but just that kind of basic stuff is like, did I do it right? Is it working? Am I mining for my first time?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think we need to answer all of the questions that people have. Like, there are a ton of people out there that just have seen the BitEggs or Nerd Miners or any other devices on TikTok or Instagram, and they think, "Oh wow, I want to join into this lottery. This sounds amazing." And somehow they got into that, and probably that's a great thing. But then they start to realize, okay, I do have a instruction panel here. I do see I need to connect to the Wi-Fi, but wait a second, where do I get a Bitcoin address from? What is even a Bitcoin address? Like, I don't think we need to answer these questions because, like, having hardware that is specifically tied to mining doesn't require you, or at least from my perspective, it does at least involve that people have these kind of knowledge points already. Um, but I think we need to pinpoint it down to these basic things. Am I doing that right? Am I connected to the correct pool? Like, am I solo mining? Am I pool mining? What's the different? Like, I think we need to address sort of these things. And that's going to be a tricky task and will probably take a couple of months to fulfill. And I'm already getting nightmares when I'm thinking about the pull request trying to address that.
Yeah, and it's also important to sort of remain agnostic to any specific way of doing things, right? Because we don't want to prescribe a certain way that people use their Bitcoin miners. I think that's pretty important to remain neutral in that. Obviously, we want people to figure it out and get going, um, but we do have to be careful that it's like, we don't say like this is the way to do it, because that sort of influences people's decisions. And I think the whole point of decentralized Bitcoin mining is that people make their own decisions.
Exactly. That's also one of the reasons why there are so many different things out there. Like, it's not only the one bit eggs. Like, there are so many not derivatives, but so many different models and versions of models. Like, it's super easy to just change things. Like, you don't want to have a BitX gamma with 5 volts. Yeah, well, then change it to 12 volts and release another version. Why not? It's super easy to do. Um, or like we just figured out, well, a couple of these S21 chips are, yeah, underperforming in a certain extent that it doesn't really make sense to use them as like a full-fledged mining device, because it would just be a underperforming device and people would be, yeah, they would be pissed probably. So that's the reason why the duo exists. People are, they don't get it, or they don't understand why it does exist. But, well, it's kind of hard to address all of these things. And Johnny, I do see what you've written in the chat. I do have a PR ready for that.
Yeah, I mean, I think that'd be really neat.
Yeah,
Unfortunately, on the phone side, you need to have an app to take advantage of Bluetooth.
yeah.
But
Um,
I mean,
I,
to the
I
extent
mean,
that we could handle that,
yeah,
be
I
pretty
I have
badass.
both things done.
Nice.
Yeah, it's just a matter of days, and then maybe I'll talk about that in the next town hall. But I'm personally not sure if I want to implement this in 2.13 already or 2.14. I'll think about it. But definitely, that's the way to go for the onboarding because it's the super easiest thing to do.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. The Wi-Fi setup process, I think, trips up a lot of people currently.
Yeah. Well, let's see. D is writing, I think, a few tiny question mark icons with info about BTC wallet and some basic information might help. Maybe with basic help link in the bubble. Yeah, but I do I do get it, but do we want to clutter the XOS front end with question mark icons everywhere? That's the next thing. Like, yes, it is definitely a good point, and I do see the improvement that we would have with this. But if we start with that, we easily get into the position where we have 200 different question marks on every single letter that we've written into XOS, and now we need to explain every single bit of piece. We need to be selective. That's the only thing I'm saying. I'm not saying that's a bad idea. It's a great idea. I'm just saying we need to be selective on what we actually want to give out as like these are information that you need to have if you use XOS for the very first time, or what is not in our position to teach to the people, because the only thing that we do teach the people are two things: how does Bitcoin mining work, and how do you set up a Bitcoin miner. I think we should not leave this range that we are in, because there are so many other projects out there that do elaborate in terms of what is a Bitcoin wallet, how does the Bitcoin network work. I think they should stick to their things and we should stick to our things, because if we go out of it, 100% we gonna mess up and something, and people either get mad at us or they don't want to use what we offer as like in terms of XOS, which is also a bad thing. We make sure that it is a smooth experience, and I'm just afraid that we could mess up things. So I'm a little bit conservative. That's the only thing I'm saying.
I mean, I think even if we do it right, there's going to be complainers, right? that's
It's
that's a given.
Yes, we have complainers already, a lot of them. Uh, it's it's not a bad thing to have. I mean, think about it. People complain only about things they do use. So yeah,
That's true. Yeah. Yeah, I can see that. I can see that. I mean, I do think that the idea of having some sort of tooltips, right? We have some already, but
yes,
having tooltips is a good idea. But then, yeah, we need to just be careful that we're not sort of influencing decisions on things, right? It's sort of an art of making a proper tooltip, but that also invites you to make up your own, uh, to come to your own conclusion about what exactly you're supposed to do.
yeah. I think one of the best examples for that, and I do see Pleb your up dream, your request for this to speak. I'll invite you in just a second. Hang on, please. I think one of the best examples that we do have is when it comes to the pool page. Like for certain, we could have like a warning info section or anything else if people use some other addresses and not a Bitcoin address, or they're not connected to a Bitcoin mining pool. Yes, we could technically write up, hey, stop mining shitcoins, but why should we? Like we built this tool. Yes, it's on SHA-256D. So technically there are shitcoins that you can mine with these devices. But in the end, we don't care. But on the other hand, if these shitcoiners come to us and request features, we just deny them because like we don't care. We don't say you're not allowed to do it, but like if something is fucking up because you find like 20 blocks on a side chain like every second, and this is mixing up things on a Bitcoin mining device, yeah, I'm sorry, I don't really care.
Are you talking about the discussion we had earlier in the week? Mostly you guys, but about sort of verifying solo mining.
Yes, this is one of the discussions that's currently been ongoing here on this Discord, that what is the best way to have this verification for solo mining or not. I mean, I think the initial idea that was going on, and the first thing that I've seen that was with PMAX PyMiner, where he just had a simple check mark in his script that you can execute to check if you're truly getting 100% of the block reward or not. And if you wouldn't get that 100%, then it would constantly show you into your CLI, you're not solo mining, you're not solo mining, you're not solo mining. And the way that Mutatrum is trying to do this verification, I do get it. But yeah, it will mess up things with all of these side chains.
I think uh, one of the thoughts I had was it would be nice to do that, right? To verify that you're solo mining, but it could be the kind of thing where um, it it only shows up if you are doing it, right? And nothing is changed if you're not. So like if you're pool mining or you're mining on some shitcoin chain, like it just looks normal. But then if you are mining to a solo pool, then you get a check mark when it's like, all right, your payout address is in the Coinbase transaction.
Yeah.
Uh, or the it appears to be on the Bitcoin main chain. Like those are sort of things that we could show to give people that like confidence that it's working, um, you know, but not sort of overwhelm people that shouldn't see it. You know what I mean? Like if you're just mining to Ocean or something, like nothing comes up. And so then people who think they should be solo mining will not see that check mark and be like, "Oh, what's going on?"
Yeah, I think that is the only plausible way to go there. Any other way wouldn't be, yeah, no, that's the only way I think about how it should be implemented. Because yes, there are so many altcoins and people are mining them. It's do whatever you want. It's your device, it's your hardware, but we cannot accommodate for all of them, and we won't, basically.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a pretty important point is that like I don't want to accommodate them, but then also is we can't really because these things come and go, and it's like that would be a full time job to sort of stay on track of all that, and it's like who wants to do that? So I think that these features, which are sort of like opt in a way, like they only show up if you're doing it, um, can be useful for people who think they should be.
I mean, one thing that caused a little bit of trouble, for example, was the quick tooltip or the quick link to the pool user page. Initially, we
Mm.
had public pool on it only. So if you were mining to public pool with your Bitcoin address, then you would be able to just click in XOS on this quick link, and you would be dragged over to the page of your user information on public pool to your specified Bitcoin address, which was a cool thing. But I think we have like over 20 pools in there now. It's it's not bad, but it's also the point of I do get it why people got upset about it. Like we had this discussion
Yeah.
a while ago where people were like, well, what if I'm a good pool, but I also do mine shitcoins? Do you will integrate me or not? Like why are we in the position to decide that? So the best option there would be to just remove all of them. But for convenience, UI, UX that we just spoke about earlier, we want to leave them in there. So sometimes we need to bite into the apple.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. I mean, I think as far as pools go, we need more. Bitcoin needs more. We don't want to be centralized on any one pool. So if we're doing this right, there's going to be more, and they're going to have different payout schemes, right? Like that's just that's just doing it right. So this list could get very unwieldy, and I guess we could always say like, all right, well, if you want your pool in there, you got to submit a PR. We're not going to just add it for you, which does seem manageable maybe for now, but yeah, it could get kind of crazy.
Currently, it's manageable. Yeah, definitely. It's just like it could go out of hands, and this was the thing that stroked some people into complaining about it. Like this can get out of hand, and what if a pool is misbehaving? Do you throw them off or not? Or like who's gonna get in there and who's not? Like who's deciding that? Yeah, well, all of these things are basically it's the same as with Bitcoin. Like take a look on the GitHub repository for Bitcoin. Well, who decides what kind of code changes go into Bitcoin and who doesn't? Well, the straight up answer is the maintainers do decide that. And if you're unhappy with that, then you open up an issue and you complain about it. And if it is a sophisticated answer or like a sophisticated concern that you do have, you probably will get an answer.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, there's a lot of drama there and a lot of heartache, it seems like, regarding the Bitcoin Core maintainers.
Yeah, there's always drama.
So distortion says, oh, that the field user, and it's not clear that that's for the wallet address. Yeah, that's kind of a historic thing, right? Is that field was always called username. And, you know, that predates like any sort of shared mining type situation, I think. And so that's why it's called users, because that's how it's always been called with Strato. I would love to have it be more straightforward for people. Like, this is where you put in your wallet address that you want to get paid out to. But then that kind of breaks down for people that are doing shared mining.
Yeah, like many of
And
these pools, they don't have like a address, they have like a username. So naming it user is the appropriate way. Also, if you think about like HTTP and HTTPS communication and authentication, like having a user just makes sense in this terms of like how do we communicate and authorize, because the Bitcoin address for solo mining pools is what you do use to authorize to get block templates. So it kind of doesn't make sense to name it user.
yeah, it's really like an overloaded field there. And then, of course, there's like, I think some pools, like nice hash and stuff, there's all these different parameters that you can put in there.
Yeah.
It's just sort of a side effect of pools trying to make it work with closed source firmware that just you can't ever change it.
You know what? I have a crazy idea. Like
Okay, let's do it.
sometimes there are I'm trying to think about one of these moments, but it could be that we do have a PR that is well that we maintainers cannot really decide about if we want to implement that or not. We could have a pool set up, and if people with a certain threshold mine to it, like if we have a certain amount of hash rate assigned to this pool, then it gets implemented.
Oh yeah, that's like what mempool.space does with the script sig thing,
Yeah.
right? It's like they'll add you as soon as as your pool has solved a block, but not until then.
Hmm.
I guess then if solving a block was the criteria, then there'd be a lot of pools that we wouldn't add.
No, I'm not saying that. I'm saying like about general things, like some major thing that is changing, and like it's too hard to decide that solely as a maintainer, and we want to involve the community. We could have a pool been set up, and only Bitaxe miners are eligible for assigning hash rate to this pool. And if this pool reaches a certain amount of hash rate, I'm not talking about the pool needs to find a block, then only then this change will be implemented.
Another thing we could do, which would definitely make some people mad, but we could only add open source, right? If your pool is closed source, you can't get added, right? You still have to send a PR to get your pool um, user page added to the link section, but we only do it if it's open source.
Yeah, well, there are so many options that we could do. Like it's kind of wild, this entire thing, and how people do try to find new issues where no issues are, in my personal opinion. Like there are
And we do
people.
have a problem with pools where they're like, oh well, I use CK pool or public pool on the back end, so it's open source. But then like the whole front end part is closed source. I'm not quite sure how to deal with that either.
Yeah, that's sort of in the range of where I'm trying to go. Like people always try to find issues. Like there are people out there who are complaining that we do utilize components on the BitX hardware that are not open source. Yeah, yes. There are closed source things that you need to use because that's the only thing that does exist that does exactly this electronic behavior. I'm sorry, it is what it is.
Yeah, that to me is a non-starter. Like there is the Open Source Hardware Association has a clear definition of this. Like that is just a non-issue, right? Using closed source components is fine. You just should have that called out in your source. Like it just yeah, that is just people being complainers for complaining's sake, and I don't really care about that.
Um, I mean, I'm just trying to make the point here that it's kind of wild where this is headed to, and especially with the point that you just made there. Like, if a frontend is not open source, like I personally don't even care. Like, I'm I'm using iOS devices. Like, nothing about that is open source. Like, yes, it's like comparing apples with, I don't know, minus. It's like two different things. Uh, if a frontend is not open source, yeah, my goodness. If a backend is not open source, okay, that drags a little bit of interest. But the first thing it does to me is like it reduces the interest that I do have in this kind of product.
Yeah, right. I mean, you can obviously have open source iOS code. It doesn't matter if iOS itself is closed source. Like you can still make the source code for your application open.
Yeah.
I mean, it gets kind of hard to for someone to take it and run it themselves because the iOS platform is so locked down. But I think that's still kind of beside the point.
I mean, I was experiencing that over the past few weeks or the past 2 months, probably, uh, because I was doing a ton of iOS development on the thing that I'm gonna do there shortly. But it's so weird, like what's going on in all of these things. And if we're talking about open source, like where's the beginning? Where's the end? Like, yes, we could go out there and be like the 10,000% maxis that are only applicable to open source things, but then I either need to destroy my house and probably 99% of all of the electronics that I do have in my house, as well as like we need to ban everybody from like distributing Bitaxes because they are also shipping out and promoting like closed source shit miners. Like, yeah, where's the start? Where's the end? It's a super difficult decision to make in 100 different things. So answers are not always easy.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't think we need to worry about it too much, right? It's like if the source code or the schematic and layout for your project is open source, like that's good enough, right? That's what we're fighting against is the people who don't do that. Um, so yeah, I mean, there's some small little technical details in there about, you know, oh, are you linking like a closed source binary or whatever? But I think that's not really an important point, right? The important point is that your program is open source or that your hardware design is open source. So just do that and we're going to be significantly better than everything else.
Yeah, I think I kind of agree on that.
Right? I mean, what we're at the end of the day, what we're up against is like just 100% lockdown proprietary bullshit. So, avoiding that and providing a useful alternative to that is how we win. So, I think that's kind of how we can judge it. Oh, on iOS, Bluetooth doesn't work on web apps, unfortunately. It does for Android, but yeah, that's where we're at with iOS. And I feel like so many people have iOS machines that I think we need to have a native app for iOS.
We
I think
will.
you can make it work with some of the frameworks like React Native and whatever the cool kids are
don't
using these
don't don't
days.
touch that shit.
React Native.
Yeah, nah. It's
React Native can do Bluetooth, but yeah, your
yes,
your troubles are
different
might
troubles.
be yeah, different troubles. You end up still making two different apps, so you might as well just go native, I guess. I don't know. Are you working with a framework on your
Yeah,
app?
I'm working with one that is multi-platform. Yeah, there are a couple out there. I'm trying to be a little bit sneaky here. I mean, I do have the version ready. Um, it's currently under review on Apple. It's such a shame. Like you need to spend money, then you need to spend time and effort, and then you need to wait for someone else to say, yeah, it's okay, you can publish that. Like, fuck off.
That's really annoying,
It is.
man. And Apple definitely gets all uptight about if there's any sort of payments or they think there's any sort of payments associated with it because they want to make sure they get their cut. I mean, not that a uh, a Bitaxe app would have any sort of payments involved in there, but you need to make sure that the reviewers at Apple are aware of that and they don't get the wrong idea about what this app is for.
Yeah, that's kind of the thing, right? Especially Apple is taking like I think I don't want to go too deep into that, but they are taking 30% of any payments if you have an app and you do offer some sort of service and you request payment from your users on this app. Apple will take 30% of it, which is kind of ridiculous.
It is pretty ridiculous. I mean, I think the solution there, I mean, someone has to buy the like iOS developer account, right, to publish an app, but
Yes, and that's $99 a year.
okay.
You need to spend
Well,
that
I think
upfront.
OSMU can fund that. We can handle that. So, you know, as long as there's no, in-app purchases or anything like that, then we should be all right.
Well, yeah. But anyway, let's see. Weren't
I mean,
you?
look, if the goal here is to make it easier to set up bid axes, then the end result is people buying more bid axes, more people running open source miners. Like it has that sort of end goal, that like downstream effect of doing what we're trying to do it here at OSMU. So I don't know if in-app purchases really get us anything.
Awesome, you probably nothing. But why don't we change topic? Because if I'm not mistaken, you've been lately to a conference that you
Yeah,
maybe want to talk about.
sure. Yeah. I got invited out to the Plan B conference in El Salvador last weekend, and it was amazing. It was my first time in El Salvador, Bitcoin country. It was really cool. It was really cool to visit. It seems like a neat place, right? I had heard some stories before I went out there, like don't get your expectations too high. It's not like you can buy everything with Bitcoin there. It's not like everything in the entire country is Bitcoin, 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 and it wasn't. So, but it was. I mean, as far as I can tell, it is the most Bitcoin country of any country I've been to, which was nice. It was reassuring to see. The conference itself was really neat. Uh, it was very well done. Of course, it's sponsored by Tether, and they have like infinite money, so it was obviously very well done. But yeah, the vibes I got from El Salvador were really cool. The vibes at the conference were really good. There was, I would say, like a new set of people there. Obviously, there was kind of the headliners that go to conferences normally. It was good to see them, but also just tons of people from Latin America who are really fired up about uh, Bitcoin, obviously, but a lot of people who are really fired up about Bidax and open source mining. And I got a lot of positive feedback. I think more and more people are understanding the mission, what we're trying to do, and they're on board for it. A lot of cool conversations in that regard with people that I'd never met before, people that are trying to, you know, get bid axes into their country, right? A few people who are, at least curious about manufacturing. Um, I got to spend some time with Ronnie, who runs the Bitcoin hardware store in El Zonte, El Salvador, which was really cool. He was a very early adopter of the Bitaxe project. It
Who's
makes
that
sense. He
and
has a
what kind of store
store.
he's running?
He runs the Bitcoin hardware store. It's a physical like brick and mortar store that just sells Bitcoin hardware, right? So
Nice.
he's got um, hardware wallets. He's got all the different hardware wallets. He's got nodes. He actually had some Blockstream satellite kits, which was really cool. And then, of course, he's got Bitaxes. And so this was a couple of years ago. He was one of the first people to start selling Bitaxes. And of course, I think it's a really neat thing to have a place where you can go and buy a Bitaxe in person with Bitcoin, right? Because you don't need to give them your address, like your physical address, so they can ship you something, right? You can just get it, like no KYC of any form. You can just get it there. And I was very pleased that he's moving a lot of Bitaxes. Like it's this tiny little store, and it's in El Zante, which is a tiny little beach town in El Salvador. It's not the capital, San Salvador, where the conference was. But I went out there, and it's cool. It's really popular. A lot of people were coming by. He tells me that he regularly sells out of Bitaxes and NerdQ axes. He was saying that the new NerdQ Axe Plus Plus is selling really well. You can't keep those in stock, which was awesome to hear. And yeah, he's got a little like sort of education space, and I did a talk out there about why Bitaxe and where Bitaxe is headed. And there was a bunch of people in attendance. We also live streamed it. I think a lot of people watched that. It was really cool. Really good vibe. I went out to El Zante for like a week after the conference in San Salvador. El Zante is a really cool beach town. It is the place where Bitcoin Beach started, and this was some people that were very early in on Bitcoin and sort of the circular economy concept with Bitcoin. And I believe that those people out at Bitcoin Beach are sort of what served as the model for the whole country of El Salvador adopting Bitcoin. I know that they had talks with the president of El Salvador and his administration, and it seemed like it was cool. And I got to say, man, surfing all day and then coming into the beach and buying some fish tacos and beer with Bitcoin was a magical experience. So really, really enjoyed that. I guess a little bit more about the conference, which was in San Salvador. San Salvador is probably like an hour drive from El Zante at the beach. Conference was great. I was on a panel about Bitcoin mining and sort of hash rate reuse and efficiencies there, which was an awesome panel. I did a live podcast interview with Stefan Livera talking about the Bitaxe project, OSMU, and 256 Foundation. That went pretty well. There was like a huge audience for that. It was pretty exciting. But then the next day, I had my own solo talk in which I just like I just laid into Bitmain. The whole talk was about how Bitmain has, somewhere in the neighborhood of 80% of the Bitcoin mining market by installed hash rate, and how they have a legacy of being a sketchy company, how the competitors to Bitmain, like MicroBT, are not offering anything better as far as decentralization and real, user sovereignty over their mining equipment. I talked a little bit about mega miners, these huge companies. My favorite point was the largest miner is called Iron. They are an $18 billion market cap company. They spend $15 million a month on electricity, and they generate all of their revenue by running closed source miners that they don't control. So it was, essentially talking kind of a lot of shit about the current miner manufacturers and how messed up the situation is. And then after that, I got into what I see as the solution, which is open source mining, which is what we're doing here at OSMU, Bitaxe Project, 256 Foundation, and really encourage people to get involved, both small miners and large miners. Small miners can increase their sovereignty. They can help decentralize the hash rate. Big miners can actually increase profits and lower risk in their mining operation by having full control over their machines, which is what open source provides. So I thought it was pretty cool. I got a lot of good feedback. Talked with a bunch of people afterwards who were like, wow, I had no idea. I want to get involved. So yeah, overall it was fantastic.
It sounds amazing. I think this is more or less the exact same experience that I had in last year in Prague, where people were like just coming up and like, oh my goodness, I had no idea. Like, yes, it does make sense. Like, what the freaking heck?
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
very
When you
pleased
kind of
that
lay it
you,
out there,
yeah,
go ahead. I was just gonna say when you kind of lay it out there, like what the current situation is, it seems so ridiculous, and I think that maybe is what people like Bitcoiners aren't really understanding is how ridiculous the current situation is. So that was kind of my goal is to be like, look, man, this doesn't make any sense what we've currently got going on. So let's fix it.
yeah. I mean, the let's fix it is sadly an approach that does take a while, especially with what we're doing here. Yes, the Bitaxe itself does offer like different versions of it, and slowly we're getting into bigger machines. But I guess it will take a little bit of time until we do have anything that is competitive in terms of hash rate wise.
Sure, sure. But it's been moving really fast. Like this hasn't been a thing for that long. And I didn't meet anyone who was like, what's the Bitaxe? Like it's become a household name. I want to make sure that people who are aware of the Bitaxe project are aware that it's open source and what that means and what the benefits it provides are. And then, I see going forward, like getting into higher and higher hash rate machines, open source firmware for bigger machines, enabling heat reuse projects. Like this is how we win. And sure, it starts off slow, but this is a full on movement here. Like there was a lot of people there who were very interested. Um, yeah, it makes a lot of sense, and I think we're making good headway. So I think, like
We're getting there.
Econo
Yes,
Alchemist says, all gas, no brakes. Let's go.
that's really awesome to hear. Let's
Developer
see.
Algo says we need open source ASIC chips in order to kick Bitmain's ass.
Yeah,
I mean,
unfortunately,
that would
that's
be
not gonna.
fantastic.
But that's not
That would
never
be
gonna happen.
fantastic, but it's not going to happen. It really
Yeah,
isn't going to happen. I mean,
go out there and
you know,
ask ASML to please provide some open source stuff. They're gonna laugh at you.
yeah. I mean, right now, unfortunately, only TSMC in Taiwan can make these highly performant chips. And even if you wanted to make an open source chip, you can't do it at TSMC because so much of the design of these chips is actually TSMC's proprietary information, right? So you
Or
can't make you can't make an open source chip at TSMC,
or
even
would
if
you?
you had the like $100 million or whatever it takes.
I mean, think about it. You take a couple $100 million, you design a chip, you take all of the information that you do have, you sell like every single chip that you have, then you go bankrupt and you just publish everything. They cannot sue you or not your company.
Okay, let's go. Someone got the money, let's do it,
That is the
Just
stupidest idea that I ever had.
just fuck around and find out. I mean, that said, I think it it would be really cool to make an open source mining chip. It would be the shittiest chip ever made, but it still would be really cool to just kind of a proof of concept of like, look, can we make an open source mining chip? I know K1's like, yeah, I can do it. Let's go. But it would be neat to put it out there. It would even be neat to make a very small, cheap FPGA miner, right? That you can load open source Bitstream on, and you're mining it like 20 mega hash or whatever, but like just so people could see like how does a chip work. Um, I've kind of got too many projects on my plate right now, but imagine a little FPGA miner. You can load a Bitstream on it. You can mine it.
See,
I don't
open
know.
source
Yes,
FPGA
there you
Bitcoin
go.
miner.
K1, I shilled that exactly. I have Programism's Bitstream on one of my slides about how Bitcoin mining used to be open source. But like, what if we took and made a little FPGA board that ran open source FPGA Bitcoin miner, and it was like, you know, the real tinkerer's Bitaxe. I think that'd be pretty fun.
I don't think a lot of people would be interested in that, but it definitely would help in terms of just preserving the knowledge that is tied into this specific case there. I mean,
Yeah,
I
that's the
do
real
remember.
long play, right? The real long play. But, kind of bringing back the sort of curiosity and learning that comes with essentially making your own mining chip. Um, it would be, as far as by modern standards, it would be a garbage miner. But the cool thing is, you could tinker around with it. And if we could make a version that sort of, had a miner application associated with it and could mine to an FPGA, I don't know, maybe that's the step towards having an open source miner someday in the future, an open source ASIC someday in the future. Like I said, that's really hard to do, but it'd be a fun little project for someone. I think the internet certainly would like it. Yeah,
Yeah,
right. Maybe we could make the sort of the real tinkerer's nerd miner.
it would be a funny project, but still involves a lot of tinkering and a lot of money to tinker around to get something that is working as intended.
That's how I got my start. I think I used that Programisms open source bitstream on a like a Xilinx Spartan 6 maybe
Mm.
way back in the day.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, it worked. I seem to remember it was like something like 20 mega hash. So that's better than a nerd miner.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Of course, those
It's
FPGAs were really expensive back then, but that was also a long time ago. So maybe we could do one of those, oh, what are they called? Lattice? Those FPGAs that have an open source, it's not a compiler, but what is it called? Where you take the Verilog and synthesize it.
mm.
Place and route. Yeah, thank you.
Oh.
All right, if anyone's looking for a project, think FPGA Bitaxe. Let's go.
Synthesize and implementation. Yeah. Mm. The implementation in
Yeah,
the
when
end,
I did
you
it, the tools were insane. It was like proprietary tools from Xilinx, and you had to have a license file just to synthesize. It was madness. I think the lab where I worked had a license, but you had to do it in the lab. Oh my gosh, it was madness. But I think the whole tool chain has gotten way better now.
well, in the end, yeah. At least the idea sounds good.
Not really.
Just just getting this and making out of that knowledge something that could evolve into an ASIC chip is kind of tricky.
Yes, kind of tricky is an understatement, but there's some smart dudes out there. There's
Yes,
some real
like
smart dudes out
why
there.
don't we just build an open source ASML? That would solve so many
Yeah.
things. Like just firing a couple 100,000 times per millisecond ultraviolet light through a molted piece of thin. Well, that sounds reasonable to open source that.
Yeah, I mean, I think we can also make a very big impact by utilizing previous generation mining ASICs and by uh, forming relationships with other ASIC manufacturers and kind of getting those parts out there, right? It's sort of the model that Intel used to had, right? That used to have. Intel made CPUs, right? They made great CPUs, but they didn't make any computers. I think they tried to make a PC at one point, but it never worked. So they realized that selling CPUs to people was the way to go, right? And then people took those and they made laptops, they made desktops, they made servers, tablets, right? All that stuff. And I think that an ASIC manufacturer should take that same approach and be willing to sell ASICs to systems builders. And we could get a we could make a lot of progress by just having a willing manufacturer of ASICs.
Yeah, let's see when this is gonna happen.
Well, there's some cool stuff coming. There's some very cool stuff coming on that front. I think One of the cool side effects of having the Bitaxe be so popular is that these underdog manufacturers are like, hey, we're willing to talk to you. It's obviously very early. They are hesitant in every step of the way, but it's not zero anymore, which is exciting.
It's better than before, for sure.
It's better than before. Yes, we are making progress.
Sean, I don't think so.
Yeah, I mean, I think that I've actually had interest from several ASIC manufacturers, but they're all very cautious, right? I think that they're seeing their potential sales dwindle from large miners for their industrial machines, and they're kind of like, oh, this is rough. As all the big miners pivot to AI, they're like, oh, wait, who's going to buy these? And so they're getting curious, but they're just not quite on board yet. And I think that's where Auradine is and a couple of the other manufacturers I've talked to. But we're making progress. So yeah, these things are definitely worth pursuing. I certainly am. I would encourage other people to do it too. Um, one of the things that several of these manufacturers has said is like, well, how big of a market is this? And I'm like, whoa, we've sold 100,000 bit axes. And they're like, wait, what? That's 100,000 chips. That's nothing. Like, this is a tiny market. I'm like, okay, true. It's a tiny market now, but you know, we've done this with no support from any manufacturer, any ASIC manufacturer at all. Like, think what we could do with a willing ASIC manufacturer who wants this to happen, who can sell us new chips with data sheets. Um, I think we can make a lot of progress, but it is going to require a leap of faith at this point from a manufacturer.
Yeah, which they are currently a little bit hesitant of.
Yes, yes, they are.
Well, let's see. So, just a quick reminder for the people in the audience: if you do have any questions, feel free to go out there and ask them. We do have a chat, or you just use your hand and raise it, and we'll bring you up on stage. If not, we are sitting at over an hour here already, so we gonna close up this session very shortly.
Pleb D Up Dream. I know you had raised your hand earlier. Plebbed Up Dream.
Hmm. The hand rose and it got down again.
Large industrial miners. Oh, there he is.
Yeah, let's see. Hey.
Hi guys. Thanks for having me on.
Oh, you're muted.
Oh, thanks for having me on. I would have text, but I couldn't reply in the comments. I was just wanting to say with the miner and people having trouble with getting it set up, and I think there's no way to really get a manual for everyone. That you guys are right with that. Maybe just run a list of requirements that you're needing. That way, when people buy their miner, they know that I'm gonna need a Bitcoin wallet. I'm gonna need this. I'm gonna need that. Just a simple sheet of like instructions, and then troubleshooting manual. Like, I know that there's so many versions and whatnot. Unfortunately, I haven't been able to get one yet and participate, but uh, yeah, I just wanted to say that I thought going to do a small list of requirements and then maybe a cheat sheet or a troubleshooting manual, simple pamphlet, maybe a pro mode toggle. That way you could toggle pro mode and get a lot of those features out of there so people can see a simpler menu. That's all I had.
Thank you
I think
for
that's
that.
pretty cool. Yeah, I mean, Wonklu, you were kind of talking about that when I first joined, right? Is sort of
Yeah.
like have kind of a basic mode that you start off in, and then it's like, all right, if you want to dig in deeper, there's like a pro mode.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, there are certain caveats to it on how this is gonna happen. I mean, I spent quite some time on thinking about this already, and I haven't yet fully decided on how this should look, but I do have a couple of drafts that I want to put up on GitHub very shortly. Uh, I mean, it's it kind of takes a little bit of time, but I do think with going into this position of being a little bit more basic and only for the people who actually do take a look into the manual and read the fucking manual, they do understand on how to unlock certain features. I think that is kind of the approach that we should take on the future ongoing. It's not going to be in 2.13. 2.13 is mostly for major bug fixes and implementing a couple new minors into the firmware. But 2.14 is a complete different story. So we will see a couple of new things in there.
Here's a wild idea I just had. I haven't fully thought this out yet, but like, what if there's two versions of ESP Miner? Right? There's sort of the really basic one that just has just the basics to get going and nothing more. And then if you're like, all right, like I'm really getting into this mining thing, then there's like ESP Miner Pro or whatever, a different firmware that you can flash that's got it all. It's like you know, the what is it, Kali Linux of Bitaxe.
Would that be built into the web flasher, and that way they could, you can choose what version you wanted?
Yeah, sure. I don't know. WantClue's probably like, shit, you want me to manage two different firmwares? Like, that's going to be gnarly. But
Yeah.
I mean,
I
not
mean,
really. I still need to push a couple of changes for the Bitaxe web flasher. I mean, with 2.13 as well, things will be a little bit more automated. So maintaining these things no longer requires things. Thanks to PMax for that, by the way, because he got me thinking about this and he implemented it into his web flasher for his NodeX devices, where everything or all of the changes that he does get automatically pushed to his web flasher, and I'll do the same on the Bitaxe web flasher.
that could be kind of interesting.
It's
I'm still
basically just a
struggling to
GitHub
know how
action
we'd
to.
maintain both of them, but like,
Yeah, I mean, maintaining multiple versions is not really gonna happen. I mean, in the end, we do have from the Bitaxe organization on GitHub, we do have ESP Miner with X2S, and any other version is not really gonna be maintained. I mean, I do remember that 2 years ago, 2.5 years ago, I was splitting ESP Miner and a ESP Miner multi-chip version because we had so much trouble with the Bitaxe Hex, the original design of it. And I just decided to split it out of the general firmware because it was causing a lot of trouble. And back in the days, we had a couple of different issues, so it was easier to just split it out. And eventually, we put back the hex into the firmware again, so it's now fully supported in there. But yeah, I maintained the multi-chip version for like 2 months, and then I didn't have time. I had too many things to do with the ESP miner firmware, so I couldn't keep up maintaining two different things. So eventually, second hand things or the second interfaces will just lose.
It's
yeah,
probably
that's
better
really
to
tough.
stick to one good solution than it is to split it up. I don't want to try to still. I don't want to hang out here too long. Like I said, I just couldn't get in the comments. I wanted to make that comments about maybe just putting a requirements list. I think is the most important thing. That way, people aren't like, "Hey, I didn't know about that."
There are some really
Uh,
cool tutorials and things, right? Like WonClue has put together an amazing YouTube series of videos. I think there's even a Plan B like whole course on Bitaxe, right?
Yeah, there is. It's basically a conglomerate of most of the videos that I did on YouTube. I mean, lately I fell a little bit short of that. I do have quite a couple of videos, probably like 200 gigabytes that I still need to edit for like BitX 101 videos. But well, God, give me a little bit more time. 24 hours a day is not enough for me.
Dude, you're crushing it. We appreciate all this.
well, I just want to get off here. Thanks, guys. I appreciate everything you're doing. You guys are doing great. If there's anything I can do to help, I'd like to try to help. If somebody could get a hold of me, I struggle a little bit figuring things out. So if anybody's got time, I could use a little direction. And I don't even know how to get off the stage right now.
Well, thank you. Thank you for joining us. I think you just pressed the red. Hang on. No, is there a?
Okay.
Oh, there's a leave the stage button down at the bottom. This is like VI, right? It's like you can start it, but getting out, good luck.
Well, thanks, guys.
Yeah, man. Thanks.
All right, with that, I think we do close up this session for today. And Scott, if you want, go ahead and do your shoutouts.
All right. Comex 10, Solo Satoshi, you guys are crushing it. I've talked to lots of people. They're like, oh, so you work for, they're talking to me and they're like, oh, so you work for Solo Satoshi, right? And I've tell them, no, but Solo Satoshi is rad, of course. I don't think this is a problem. I just think it's really cool how a lot of people have gotten their first Bitaxe from you. So you guys are doing a great job. Appreciate it. Sean at IX Tech. I feel like IX Tech is doing way more rad stuff than I actually know about. Like the stupid Twitter algorithm doesn't show it to me. I wish there was a way that I could get like an excellent feed of like the cool stuff as everyone is doing, and less like just stupid Epstein posts on Twitter. So yeah. Anyways, you guys are doing rad stuff. I want to know more about it. So I guess in the meantime, feel free to post about what you got going on OSMU. Matt Solo Satoshi, obviously a legend. Good to see you, buddy. Keep up the good work. You're crushing it. Distortions, hey, good to see you. Always appreciate your input. I feel like you're a regular here. Good to see you. K1, know you don't really have anything going on and you have tons of free time. So, I think you should make an FPGA Bitaxe. That'd be pretty rad, right? In your spare time. No big deal. Cool. Plebbed Updream, thanks for joining us. Good to hear from you. Developer Algo, obviously a legend, needs no introduction. Cool Bitaxe manufacturer, original. Tommy G at IX Tech, also crushing it over there. I love that you guys join us in force every time for these town halls. It's so cool to have all the people like yourself that are just so involved in this community. Really, really appreciate it, everything that you're doing. And Hex Fox, yes, dude, good to see you. Keep up the good work. I really appreciate all the people that are just providing awesome input in the firmware development channels. This is where the magic happens, and I know you're a big part of that. So appreciate it. All right, thanks everyone for joining us. It's been another fantastic town hall.
All right, with that, I'd say goodbye and see you again in 2 weeks.
Later.